Hi, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world joining us today. Thank you so much for joining for another GMAT Club live session. This is a new series that we are starting where we are going to talk to admits from round one. And to start this series, we have someone special. We have Olga here today. You all must have seen the earlier, really popular session with Shovik, where Olga talked about her GMAT experience, and then she has gone on to achieve something that very few people can claim. She got admits from both Harvard Business School and Stanford GSB, two of the most competitive and most selective MBA programs in the world. Olga, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been here last time, so it's great that now the journey is coming to an end, at least this part of
Yeah,
the journey.
yeah, and what a fantastic result you've had. So, for
Thanks.
those who don't know, Olga had a 730 on her GMAT, and then she has admits from HBS, Stanford GSB, and Kellogg. Is that
Right,
right, Olga?
that's true.
Awesome. So, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Just give the viewers a bit of background about what you were doing before you decided to go for an MBA.
Yeah, all right. Perfect. Yeah, hi everyone. I hope that today's talk would be helpful to you and especially motivating because exactly 1 year ago I decided that I want to apply for an MBA. What had happened before that? So originally I'm from Russia. I have international experience. I have been living in Germany since 3 years, and all my career I worked at Mercedes and doing different kind of jobs. I started in strategy, and last 3 years I have been working in innovations and having to do some cool stuff with electric vehicles. I have bachelor's in economics and also master's already in economics, so that's one of the things maybe we could mention today for those who already have some kind of graduate education. And yes, I have a lot of different hobbies, which I colorfully described in the applications. I think this was also a fun part of it. Feel free to ask me any further questions.
Awesome. So, looks like you were doing really cool things even before you thought of an MBA. But what made you decide you wanted to go for an MBA? I know different people have different reasons. So, what were yours? And then, what did you want to get out of the MBA experience?
Yeah, thank you. So pretty much it was a result of all these New Year resolutions. 1 year ago, I was thinking, okay, I need to take a next step, and ideally not even a step, but a leap in the career. And how can I achieve it the fastest way? And I focused on thinking what do exactly I want from my further step in the career, and I was actually expanding the contact to the international business community. Also making more international friends from different countries of the world, because I really loved my move to Germany in this regard. And also I wanted to to intensify also the studying process in a way that I would like to get more hands-on skills, and this is exactly what you get from an MBA. Also, I thought like moving to the US, it's a cool thing because I've been to Russia, I've been to Europe, so let's see what the next continent is. I'm kind of this hop on, hop off girl in terms of living around and traveling around. And I just understood that no company and no further career step within the company will give me this exposure to the international business community as MBA could do. And this is the moment when I decided to at least start my research on schools.
Awesome. That sounds like you did a lot of thinking before even deciding that you wanted to take the big leap. I know those sound all sound perfectly great reasons. I think I had very similar reasons when I started preparing for my MBA journey. But awesome. So I know Shovik and you talked a lot about your GMAT experience, how you prepared, but uh, if just to keep the timelines a bit in sync, when did you start preparing for GMAT? How long did you take to prepare for the exam and then sit for the test? And then what would be sort of like your uh, overview tips for GMAT?
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's really easy to exemplify because, as I said, I really started my way exactly 1 year ago, beginning of February. It took me
Yeah.
around 1 month to play with the thought in more details. I went to the websites of schools. I found out that one needs to take a GMAT. So it took
Yeah.
1 month from beginning of February to end of February. On the 28th of February, after the last party I had for that period of time, I decided I need to go for GMAT. And it took me 3 months or even 2.5 months to prepare for a GMAT. And mid of May, I already had my exam done. So the preparation took around 2.5 months, answering your question. And yeah, probably we could send a link to the video where I talked in more details about that. But the main takeaway for me, because it seems like while you're preparing for GMAT, that's like the most complicated part of the application. That's the most stressful part of the application.
Yeah.
Guys, the most stressful part about the application is to choose from schools when you're accepted to several ones. That's a struggle. Yeah, so therefore, try to finish your GMAT story as soon as possible because you will need so many mental resources to prepare the application, to write the essays. And I was really happy that I still had, yeah, like 3 months, more than 3 months before my application deadlines, which I could dedicate exclusively to this, yeah, to the essay part of the application.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you said. When you're preparing for GMAT, it looks like, this is the most difficult and also the most important part. It is important for sure, but there's so many things that come after it. And a lot of times I see on GMAT Club, I see applicants making a mistake. They'll just, keep preparing for GMAT right until the round one deadlines or round two deadlines, and then they'll give very little time to the rest of the stuff, which I feel is equally important. Especially what comes right after GMAT. Okay, you have your great score, and in your case you had a great 730. After that, how did you decide, okay, which schools do I want to apply to? What were the top factors for you? How did you do your research? And how did you make that shortlist? I think that's another important area where a lot of applicants, everybody just thinks of Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, and beyond that, a lot of people don't really do a lot of research.
Yeah, this was super hard because I have no friends who made experience with an MBA or who've gotten an MBA in the US. So I started really on a blank page. I had no clue what is my level, for what schools I'm actually competitive, because I'm sure you have heard the standard recommendation apply to 2 safe schools, 2 schools of your level, and 2 schools like which are rich. I had no clue what is reach for me and what is my level. So I tried to talk to as many people as possible, and GMAT Club was instrumental in that, just to get the taste of who I am in the hierarchy of admits or like potential candidates. And so, for example, Suik was also very helpful, and and that was the moment where, first of all, I understood that MBA community is so cool because everybody is willing to help. So as soon as you are in, that's a very nice journey. So definitely websites is a huge source of information, different videos, be it on GMAT Club channel. So I'm glad that you're developing this channel as well, and a lot of other stuff. So everything is out there. But also, of course, at some point I realized that I will need a consultancy. So I probably the consultancy I have, she shows up from time to time on your channel, but I don't know whether I can name it. But my idea behind that was because I'm not an expert at all, and I'm coming from abroad. I need somebody from within this MBA story, and so this is how I found support, and also in the research phase, the consultancy helped me a lot.
Got it. And I know you're hitting the nail right on the head when you say that formula of having to safety, to reach, that doesn't work for everyone. But for you, how many schools were you looking at round one? I know you had like 3 to 4 months before the submission deadline, so that's kind of like good enough time. And how many schools did you target that you're gonna apply for round one?
Yeah. So I had a short list of around 7 to 8 schools, which looks like they're a good fit to me in terms of where I want to be geographically, also in terms of maybe their position in rankings. While many would say rankings are not that important, but I think for internationals, it's one of the things you definitely look at. Sure. And then throughout the journey, so I didn't stop there, okay, these are 7 schools that I will be applying to, because I wanted to reduce the number of schools to apply to like 4 to 5. And while preparing for the GMAT, I was visiting a lot of events organized by school, and I think schools, and I think we're to a certain extent blessed that we were in this COVID time, because schools made so many digital events. I believe they don't do that many like in normal conditions. And while I was getting to know schools better, I was able to filter some schools out, because I found out, okay, maybe I don't like the culture, or maybe, the lecture type is not really what I'm searching for, and so on and so forth. So this was a journey which I was doing in parallel while preparing the basics of my applications, like also asking for recommenders to help, because what a GMAT score, recommendations, they should not be, in my view, really tailored to school to a big extent, or at least not as much as your essays need to be tailored. The moment you you start to write essays, you need to have the short, like the final list. But before, so I had 7 schools, and I just proceeded in this mode of those are potential 7 schools that I want to apply to.
Gotcha. That's smart. And I want to take a quick segue and tell our audience that if you have any questions, I'm sure you have a lot of questions for Olga, keep putting them in the chat. We're going to get to them soon once I'm done with my bunch of questions. So Olga will have a ton of questions to answer today. But I guess she's used to the art of interview by now.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. So you had your GMAT score. You knew which schools you wanted to apply to. You did mention that you started attending the events, and I completely agree. Going virtual probably was a great thing. I think everyone could attend a lot more events. But what was your your strategy to research and really know these programs inside out? Because I know that helps a lot in your essays. That helps a lot in your interviews, in your conversations. How did you go about connecting with students? How did you research about these programs?
Right. Yeah. So I mentioned already, like talking to students. There were plenty of coffee chats where you could get to know students, and also they are very open to share their emails, their contacts, and if I had some questions to follow up on, I just reached out to them. And that's really the thing I mentioned about the MBA community. That's not like in the normal world that you make a cold call and people just hang up. That's not like it. People tend to answer a lot. I think my answer rate was like more than 70%. And I was always overwhelmed that I actually received an answer. I think students are the biggest resource. Of course, it's nice if you know someone directly, or at least, in a couple of handshakes, let's say. But also online, you can find a lot of guys. Also, the helpful tool is actually LinkedIn, because you can search by several, filters there. So you type in the school, you type in the preschool industry, and then certain guys, they will be shown, or girls or guys, and then you can connect to them. That's super cool, because as soon as you find someone who has a very similar profile, it's very easy in talk to this person to tailor your strategy for any chosen school.
Right. And what were you typically talking to these people about? What were those questions that you really wanted answered? Because I know it's one thing to reach out to people and get them to talk to you, maybe for 30 minutes. But I feel that there are people who do a really great job at this research and talking to people. So I'm just curious to know what was your strategy?
I focused primarily on the social and emotional component of schools, because I think the academics, you can get to know about it via like internet and open resources. And believe me, in all top 20, 30, 40 schools, academics, in my view, are just as good. Yeah. And what schools differ through is actually their social life, whether it's a tight community or whether it's rather a broader community. And having exact references by current students, it's been helpful. And also, of course, by the graduates, it was so helpful to understand how do they live what is their life like when they have already graduated? Do they contact a lot? Do they communicate a lot with school, with other guys who graduated maybe other years? Because that's one of the biggest resources that you get after you graduate eventually, that you have this community around you. And no matter whether you are, class of 2023, 2025, you'll still find a way to connect. For me, getting this real life experience, both from school and after school, was the most important component. How people connect to each other within the school, whether clubs are the main resources, because I'm not a big fan of clubs. Also, I would rather socialize through, making projects together, something like this. And this was important to me.
Gotcha. That's I think super important and really helpful to know. And I agree. I think you can get to know a lot about the schools from their websites. All of them look the same. I would say 80 to 90% of the programs look the same. But great to know that you were talking more about. And I think that the questions you were asking also help you assess your fit, how well you're going to fit into those programs as well. Awesome. So GMAT's done, research is on the way. How did you start thinking about writing essays? And let's maybe talk about the arguably the two most difficult essays in the in the entire MBA community. Stanford has a classic one. HBS also doesn't do give you an easy job. I think both the questions give applicants a lot of rope to hang themselves with, and there's a lot of room to go wrong. So how did you start thinking about what you wanted to write? And maybe we can go first with HBS and then we'll talk about Stanford.
Right. So after I got my GMAT results, I definitely took a couple of weeks pause. I think it's essential, to bring your mind to certain settled state, because you need to be absolutely calm to start of this essay journey, because this is about reflection. And this, I think you also heard lots of times, but this is it. Imagine it as a creative process. And if you're in constant stress, you will never be able to come up with a creative result. And essay, it's not about, listing your achievements, because this is the boring job done by CV. You need to, go an extra mile in showing what kind of personality you are. So first of all, calm down. After the GMAT or whatever you do, never do
not an easy thing to do.
Yes, it's not like go for a walk, do something else, go for travel, whatever. But that's essential to so that your mind starts to to bring up these ideas who you are. Because unfortunately, for example, I was not the person who ever had time in life before to stop and think about myself. Who am I? What is my journey? How it has been so far? What do I want to achieve in future? Not to that extent. And Harvard question is tell me more about yourself beyond. I don't know. Don't remember anymore the exact formulation, but basically tell me whatever you want.
Just throw in 1,000 words to do that.
Exactly, and that's a lot. And the thing is, I think it's essential for Harvard application to first fill in the rest of the stuff, because you have lots of chapters there to tell about yourself. What are your extracurricular activities and respective achievements? What kind of volunteering have you done, if any? What awards do you have? As soon as you fill this in, this shouldn't be a final version yet, then probably it may come obvious to you what is the essential component that is missing. In my case, it was I wrote about my very first year at work. So how I arrived as a freshman, pretty much, and how my first year of work changed me as a person and set me for this, the professional way. This was a component which was missing there. CV didn't tell anything about, let's say, my struggles in the first year, what challenges I met as a very young girl. But it said everything else, what I achieved, also all these awards and extracurriculars, it's written somewhere else. And this was an essential component. For some people, it may be, how you were raised, in which conditions you were raised, or what other situations happened at job, which cannot be really described in terms of professional achievements, also how you develop as a personality. So I tried different stuff. I think I wrote around 5 to 6 essays. After some of them, I literally cried, because it was such a discovery for me about myself. as soon as you bring something to paper, you're like, wow. And you write this essay, maybe it will go to trash eventually, but you want to still stop and think more about this. So give it a time. It took me around, I think, 1 month to write this essay. If you want it to be more than essay, if you want it to be something that really brings you further, no matter whether you will be admitted or not, give it proper time.
Gotcha. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I didn't apply to HBS, but I applied to Stanford, and that question had me thinking for a good, I guess, 2 weeks. Thought about it, just thought about it before even writing a word. But yeah, I'm curious to hear your experience. It's again not an easy question. You can write about anything. And I guess Stanford, both the questions are quite open. What matters the most to you and why, and then why Stanford. So talk us through what your thought process was for that.
Right. This was such a huge struggle. I just there were moments I hated it because it caused these feelings in me that I couldn't understand. I couldn't, I couldn't zoom in my life to that extent that I need just one word or one phrase, what matters to me most and why. This is so complicated. It's much easier. I really believe that HBS essay is a little bit easier because you have this word count. You can really even drop in like several stories which cover different parts of your life. And in Stanford, you still can bring stories up from different spheres of your life, but it should be all one theme, one line, pretty much one thread. I did the same. I also did several attempts, and sometimes my ideas were pretty trivial, and I ended up writing like what you could name a trivial stuff. I said empathy is the most important thing to me, but the most important things were how I have proven that within the essay. I have shown in several parts of the essay that empathy prevailed. I suffered myself of this empathy. I made other people to whom I didn't need to show empathy suffer because I focused on empathy towards a certain group of people. And I brought examples from different spheres, from work, from extracurricular activities, and from my personal life as well. And I think this is what worked pretty effectively. And if you don't feel like you progress fast, don't expect fast progress in this essay, maybe start with the easier one, which is why Stanford. I think it's a little bit easier because you can really bring up like very hard arguments why for your professional development, Stanford is the place to be. So if you start to procrastinate and really struggle and get frustrated, maybe start with the second essay, and as soon as you're done with it, get back to the first one and attempt until you find the secret sauce. Maybe just one more thing. What triggered me to understand this is the right story. After I wrote it, I read it the next day and I was like, this is me. Nobody else who is described in this essay, this is me. And I would be really proud. If I get accepted with this essay, I would be proud of it because it's pristine. It is humble. I wrote about myself and there is no single word of, I don't know, it's not too much and it's not too little. And this is the moment I realized, okay, I need to stop in this never-ending drafting. This is it.
Yeah, I think that was my question, that when do you realize you have the perfect draft and when do you stop editing it? Because again, I know people keep editing it till the deadline day, and I've heard it's a great process. So how do you go about that? When do you know you have the right draft?
The thing is, I think many of us who want to pursue MBAs, we're perfectionists, and for us, our own essay will never be perfect. And it was the case for me. Be it Harvard essay or Stanford essay, they were not perfect in my view. And also, I'm a non-native, so I knew they're not perfect and like a lot. But there is still, it's also not the last step in your application. You still need to proofread it, and you cannot do it within one day. Also, better you take a good sleep and then you start a fresh day and you read the whole application once again. Just plan your timeline in a way that after you're done with your essay, you have a sufficient amount of time for everything else. And I think this is also the difference in these two applications. For Stanford, you can first write essay and then everything else. I think for Harvard, you first fill in all these necessary fields and then you write an essay. So make sure that you tailor your timeline to each school. and allocate enough time for proofreading. And definitely, you just so much stuff collapses last time, like shortly before you submit. Definitely, I mean, but we're all adults, guys. You know how it ends up. Your computer, like your internet collapses, the computer gets broken, whatever. Some emergencies appear. Just like be mature. Don't cause this situation to yourself. Finally, at this age, be mature.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of people, like you said, we all know what the consequences are. We all know what the timelines are. But still, I see people keeping it until the last moment and then just losing their mind over it. So you applied to both HBS and Stanford. We know you got into both. Just tell us about how these maybe not schools, but how these two applications are different and how are they similar for others who are looking to apply to both of these programs.
Right. That's a really hard question. I was not prepared for that. Because
Okay.
like what shocked me constantly, I saw many people applying to like 10 to 15 schools, and I heard from them that from a certain moment they all get so similar, the applications, that you just handle them very easily. This is definitely not the case about these two guys. They want to make sure that you work your ass off for both of them. And the difference in these applications is, first of all, if you had enough time, if you have dedicated enough time to your research, you will see they're searching for different kinds of personalities.
Right.
And so being accepted to both, I can just say we can show ourselves from different sides. Yes, I would say that like really the most important for Harvard is that you're a leader wherever you go, be it in terms of extracurricular, personal life, whatever. So I showed this side of mine, and it took myself time to collect the stories which show exactly this personality trait. And for Stanford, it's change life, change organizations, change the world. How you have been changing, you have been a change agent, not necessarily in a leadership position, but how you have served as a change agent. And also collecting this type of stories. In my case, there were two completely different applications. I didn't feel myself in the position to take a story or even essay from one school and serve it on the plate of other school. I don't think it's the case. So that's the main thing. Just look into what schools want and show this type of this side of your personality. That's one thing. And another thing I mentioned already, the order, I think how the applications have to be processed by you, it's different. And maybe third thing, also try to maybe also time-wise allocate different time moments or, like periods of your life to two different applications, because you need to be in Harvard mode for Harvard application and in Stanford mode for Stanford application. I have finished my Harvard application end of July, and I finished my Stanford application end of August. It was extremely helpful so that I could completely be, in, as I said, I would call it Harvard or Stanford mode, or state of mind, whether you're currently leader or you're currently, a person who is changing the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've again bang on with the difference between the two schools. I think they're looking for similar things, but in a different way, different packages for the same product. And did you also, when you were obviously writing for HBS, you were completely focusing on HBS. When you were writing for GSB, you were focused on GSB. But did preparing applications for these two schools first help your applications for other schools? And if so, how did that help?
This was helpful because definitely there's still like a lot of lots in the applications in common. Bio stuff and information about your parents. And when I was like super lazy and couldn't do anything else, I was feeling that part. It was actually super helpful because last week for the deadline, you're like, oh gosh, I need to actually fill everything in. And it's much more than just this 4 or 5 components, GMAT recommendations, blah blah. There's a lot of like kind of survey, and some of them they want, I don't know, when your parents graduated, I had no clue. I really don't know when my parents graduated,
Same
but
here. Yeah,
I
I
need
had
to
to go
check.
back and ask them. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And I know I had time. I have time difference with my parents, so I couldn't clarify this on spot.
Yeah.
So this is the big part, and I think this you can do pretty much in parallel. Definitely, and sometimes it was helpful when I was coming up with stories for. I started with Harvard. I thought,
Yeah.
maybe it's not the perfect story for Harvard, but this could be something for Stanford. So I just wrote a couple of sentences, to save it somewhere, and put it aside, and then took it again when I started to work on my Stanford application. And this applies also to other schools. And definitely, the more schools that you apply to, the more similarities you have, because Kellogg
Yeah.
also have this kind of value stories,
Discussion, yeah.
albeit shorter. And therefore, this is somewhere where I could benefit from Stanford application, put it for Kellogg one. And maybe that's one more thing. If you have your priority schools, my advice actually it differs from what you read otherwise. Many people say first write stuff for your like safe schools, and only then focus on your focus schools. If you put substantial mental effort in preparing education, especially for such schools, Harvard and Stanford, mental capacity is limited. Invest it in your best shots, and then try to derive something for other schools from that. This is how I did. I first focused on most important stuff for me, and I can tell you, as I was applying to different schools, the later was the application, the worse the quality of the application was in my case. For some people, it's differently. If you approach every application, okay, the 1, 2, 3, 10th, 12th, maybe it's different. But when you do this, very zoomed shot, maybe it makes sense to focus on your top schools, because it's a mental work.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I felt the same way. Like my applications, the ones that I worked on later on, I wasn't as happy with them because I was so fatigued. I was like, just want to get done with this now. Let's submit it and let's go. So yeah, totally agree. So I think a lot of parts of the MBA application are in your control, your GMAT, your essays, your resume. The one thing that I feel you're not in as much control of is letters of recommendation. And that again and again, I see applicants, just delaying that, not talking to their recommenders till the last moment, and then the recommenders just write something, and it doesn't work out well for the applicant. So, how did you approach your recommenders? When did you approach them? What was your strategy?
Yes, that's a great question, because I think indeed the underestimating the importance of the recommendations, it's one of the big mistakes. Remember my timeline. So beginning of February, I started preparing for GMAT. Mid of May, I was done with my GMAT. 1st of June, after a couple of vacation time, I contacted my first recommender.
Okay.
Even before he knew that I'm on this, and I'm searching for paths to develop myself, because he's also my mentor. But I approached him saying, I need your support on 1st of June. So still like 3.5 months before the deadlines. First one, and then a little bit later, the second one. Don't let them write whatever they want. I tell you why, especially for those. If you're not in a consulting company where recommenders do it, on a routine basis, and they know what schools want, otherwise don't let them do it alone, because my recommenders, they are great people and very talented managers, but they just have never encountered what MBA is and what schools want. They could have written just she is making great presentations.
And that would be true, but
yes,
that would be true of so many MBA applicants.
Exactly, that's not what school is searching for. So I took time with both of them. I created a MBA recommender toolkit presentation, because I'm great at presentations, right? So I collected information for them, 1-pager for each school, some values of the school, what they're searching in the application, because I wanted that my recommenders also tailor their recommendations, at least one for Harvard, one for Stanford, and try to derive something for other schools. So they knew what they need to focus on, like leadership stories for Harvard, and this change agent for Stanford. Also, beyond that, I had talk, even I would say 3 talks, which of them spread over time. In the beginning, okay, why I want to do this, then a couple of weeks, what the recommendation is supposed to be about. And during the 3rd meeting, we actually went through the stories, like the titles pretty much, what we both think is a fair thing to say about me and what may be valuable beyond my application. It's critical that to that point of time, so let's say 3rd meeting, which happened, so that you again have all the impression about the timeline, around end of July, I already knew the overall structure, the approximate structure of my applications for both schools. And therefore I knew what stories I'm missing, what components I'm missing. And I wanted these components to be highlighted by the recommenders, so that you get the full, there are several flowers. Imagine it like, a garden, and some flowers you bring and some flowers are supposed to be brought up by recommenders. It should be something different, because if I say I'm great at presentations and my recommender says I'm great at presentations, sorry for this, that's a bad example, don't write about it, but just, for the sake of example, it doesn't bring anything. Your recommendation doesn't bring anything if it doesn't bring new information to the adcoms. And I focused that my recommenders bring new ideas.
Gotcha. And it looks like you did a great job of project managing this entire thing with regular checkups, making sure they are feeling okay about it. Because I know, I think anyone who goes for recommenders, you're usually going to people who are already very busy with their work, and with virtual environment, you can't like meet them in the office. So you have to like do all of this virtually. Sure, it was a lot of work.
Totally, guys, that's really, I think project management, this is how it should be approached. So do presentations, Excel, everything you can do at work, approach the application just in the same way, structure your journey towards submitting a successful application. Ideally, if you came up with the idea even early and you will apply next year, it's essential to nurture your relationship with your bosses or whoever will be your recommender. Because if you are in not that open relationship, not that, tight relationship with your managers, they will not be able to write a great applications. I could totally trust these 2 people that I picked, that they love me as a person. They are able to write, a small, based on truth, fairy tale about me, picking really colorful words and expressions. This was important to me. And if, as of today, this is not still the stage of your relationship with your managers, please bring some more, humble part in your relationship. Like have a feedback talk very openly about how you want to develop yourself and what career path you envision. Make sure that this relationship is very, it's that it can result in a good application, in a good recommendation. Sorry.
Absolutely. I think, it's very important to make sure that they are doing it because they want to do it and not because you ask them to do it. There are 2 very different scenarios. And I think letters of recommendation can, like you said, it's your chance to show what someone else thinks about you, because the rest of it is you telling them what you think about yourself and what you've done. So super important. Okay, I want to quickly move to, you September came, you submitted all your applications. What did you do from then until you started getting interview calls? How did you prepare for interviews? What was your strategy in the post-application phase?
I struggled because waiting is the worst thing ever. You cannot really get you cannot get out of this bubble you put yourself in. You're so deep in this. Basically, these are the only friends left in your life, guys from GMAT club, because with everybody else you haven't had any contact over last 10 months. Your friends have forgotten you.
And they don't know what the hell you're talking about. What's an LOR?
Exactly. They're so tired of it already. Exactly.
Yes.
So if it is possible, try to distract yourself with something stop enrolling. Probably, really, it's my advice. Stop enrolling in all this like never-ending calls, because it's really it's to a certain point it's too much. Maybe really celebrate because you have just went you have traveled this huge journey, and you have submitted, and now it's waiting time. You cannot change anything anymore apart from then later participation in participate in an interview. So travel, go out if it's allowed currently, if you're not in quarantine. Spend some time with your family. Just try to forget about everything what has happened. A little bit closer to the time when I knew the invites will go out soon, I started to again, read and inform myself what the interview structures are, and slowly get prepared for that, at least morally. But I don't think it makes sense to prepare for the interview too much before you get the invite, because otherwise you don't have any time to relax. Again, after the application is submitted, you need to bring your state again in the state of mind that you're calm and ready for next, a cobra leap. Exactly. Therefore, I will say again, relax.
Gotcha. I think that seems to be the theme, right? Relax after GMAT before you start your applications, then relax again. Don't burn yourself out through the process. It's a long, grueling process. Olga, it took you 1 year. It typically takes everyone a year to get from thinking about it to making it. So it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
That's what I was about to say. It's a marathon. So if you run first kilometer very, very fast, it doesn't make you a champion. And if you're already exhausted by running a half marathon, you will not be able to make it as effective to the end. So be a sportsman in this regard, and treat your body and your mind rightfully.
Yeah, pace yourself. Cool. And how was it interviewing with these two schools? And maybe we can again split it up. What did the HBS interview look like? What did the Stanford interview look like? I know round 2 invites are just around the corner, so people who are waiting for that, this might be useful for them.
Yeah, rooting for you guys. The interviews couldn't have been more different. Completely different. This I didn't expect at all. My first one was by Harvard, and this was very intense, guys. I also posted all my interview reviews on the GMAT Club page, so make sure you read it. It's also a huge resource in your preparation to read how other guys survived that. Harvard one was very intense. They fit everything in 30 minutes, and I think over 30 minutes I've had 18 questions, which is like super tough. And also imagine, for a non-native, you are supposed to keep questions in your mind, because they were throwing not only one by one question, they were saying like, I can bring you a cool example. An interview was asking me, so what is the situation with electric vehicles in Europe? What is Tesla's position there in the market, and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? It's like three different questions with a different depth, and you need to answer them in a pretty precise format. And you need to keep all these questions somewhere so that you answer everything and not only the last question. I think this is the stressfulness of the situation they try to simulate. They try to simulate like a very tough corporate world, in my view, where you need to act fast, you need to keep everything in your memory, and you need to be able to explain complicated stuff in very in a not complicated way. This is, I think, the main characteristic of Harvard interview. Stanford is conducted by an alumni, and if you have engaged to Stanford with Stanford community, by that time you know that they are very laid back people, and this is how the interview felt as well. It allows you to react. Maybe that's exactly what they want, that you don't sit there like very buttoned up and prepared for all the questions. No, they want you to relax, and maybe, as I said, maybe it's their strategy. And it was very comfortable, because out of, I think, of 1 hour that we had our interview, half an hour I could ask questions. So I felt like I'm interviewing the alum. This was cool. This gave me a chance to relax. And I enjoyed that process a little bit more, because it was not that, attacking to a certain extent. But again, when I talked to different guys who also had interviews, they had different impressions. For some of them, alums were so really very investigative. They put a lamp and they ask lots of questions. So it depends on the character of a person you encounter. What I can say, you cannot possibly prepare well for interview. Whatever I prepared, whatever I was thinking or questions I was preparing, almost none of them were asked, especially by Harvard. Harvard's aim is to throw you off the script. They know that you have prepared, and they do like something what you don't expect. I was asked, for example, wow, that was a cool promotion. Why they picked you and not other like 10, 20 people who worked? And they even asked this question repetitively several numbers of times, because they wanted me to get cracked and tell the reason. What do I think is the real important component of me which brought to this promotion? Stanford is a little bit more standard, but there are also tricky questions. So prepare, but not too much. It's much more important to arrive there at a calm state of mind.
Gotcha. And all of these interviews, I'm assuming, were virtual for you?
Yes, they were virtual, online, just like we're doing it right now. So make sure you have a good light there. Make sure you look at the camera and not on yourself, how I'm doing sometimes now, to see whether my hair is all right. So look at the camera, put some sticker as a reminder. It's of course hard. I find it hard to talk to camera because you then don't see the person to whom you're talking and cannot track the reactions. But the funny thing is, especially at Harvard, they don't show any reactions. You always think like, did I do it that wrong? Why you don't show any appreciation or the frustration, whatever? You cannot get any hints from their eyes whether they liked your answer or not. Therefore, you don't lose anything when you just look at the camera. So look at the camera and smile, because they want positive people. They want people who are open, who would be willing to engage in the community, be helpful. And the best way to show it is by smiling and being very open and warm.
Gotcha. And I think you're doing all of those things right now. So it looks like you have done your practice. Do you want to add anything about the other interviews you did for Kellogg, for any other school? Was there anything different? Anything in particular you may want to share?
Look, there like the main similarity is by whom it is conducted. Kellogg's interview is also conducted by an alum, therefore it's more relaxed. And I also had MIT interview. I have withdrawn my application later when I learned that I got accepted to Harvard and Stanford, because I didn't, in case they would have accepted me, I didn't want to take anyone's place. And MIT interview is also conducted by the admission committees. Again, it's a little bit more serious, has a more the formal setting. That's the same difference, but again, just try to relax and be warm. I think it's really most important thing. Think of some funny moments in your life, bring them up. What fun activities you have organized for your colleagues, for example. This you couldn't have brought anywhere in the application. So, for example, I mentioned this. I said, hey, I organized a trip for my German colleagues to Russia, to my homeland. And this I think it was so well placed, because it brings fun. It gives them the impression that you're a live person and not just, so much focused on your career or extracurriculars, whatever, because you do also some stuff for fun.
Gotcha. We have a bunch of questions pouring in, so I'm going to probably ask the last question I have, and then we'll switch and we'll start taking questions from the audience here. Let's try to, it's still relatively fresh for you. So just tell us about, when you look back, what was those things that you think you did really right? Things that led you to this amazing result of having 3 prestigious programs in your kitty, and now you're choosing between them. What did you do right?
All right, let's keep it very short. Well-planned timing, allocated enough of time for everything, and seeing the next step, and not only focusing on the current step and knowing how much time the next step would take. Then catering my mental health and my physical health and my relationship beyond the GMAT club. With my partner or also with my family, I try to attend to them as well. And third, I think indeed focusing on working with recommenders, so that they write something not trivial, because you cannot imagine, like, no, you can, you know the numbers, how many recommendations guys read in the adcom, and if it's all the same, you know, Olga is great and she's great and she also writes good presentations, and take her. Like, that's so boring, and not only your application has to be not boring, but also recommendations. So this, I think, are my top 3.
Awesome. Again, perfect response. Kept it to 3, not 2, not 4, just as it is recommended. Cool. Let's jump into some questions. First question we have, and maybe if I'm getting this right, it's from AS, so let me know if I get this right. Were there any aspects outside of your essays that you were worried about pre-essays, or maybe writing before your essays? And I guess the question's more about no candidate is perfect. Were there things in your application you were worried about? And then how did you go about offsetting those weaknesses?
Right. Yeah, generally you start off, or at least it was my case, I didn't know whether I'm good, and rather I was like, no, I'm not good enough. And I was rather searching what is not that good in my application. And definitely from the standard stuff, my underscore is not that sensational. But also my education system in Russia is completely different. You barely, like at my university, you barely can find anyone with 4.0 or even 3.9. So yes, I was stressed about it a little, but always try to see whether there are other components in your applications which can offset this. So GMAT and undergrad score, they belong to the same cohort of indicators. They are showing your intellectual abilities. And my GMAT was good, so I was pretty sure that this will be the GMAT will offset my not as great undergrad score, but mine was 3.4. It's still, for Russia, it's great. And also, as soon as you bring them more information about your comparative performance to other peers, so maybe I really contacted my university because they are not having any ranking per se. So I asked them to investigate what was my position in class, and my university was pretty responsive, and they told me, like, you were in top 20%. It was a great number, and I brought it, I added it to my application.
And on the same note, I know a lot of applications have an optional essay that you can use to describe any extenuating circumstances. Did you use those essays? Any tips for that? How to go about it? How long to keep it? I know people tend to write life stories in those essays. Again, not a great advice, I would say.
No, I didn't use it, even though, as I told you, I was a little bit concerned about my undergrad score, but I also didn't want to appear too insecure about myself, and starting to explain them, oh, sorry, that teacher was so bad and I didn't like him and therefore I got a bad score. No, again, if there are some other elements which offset something where you performed less or worse, then just use only standard fields. I think it's only necessary to use the additional essay if it's something really crucial. If it's like, if you read your application and understand yourself, they sit there and like, why? I have no clue. This was not the case, and they read so many materials, I didn't want to throw yet another paper in their face.
Gotcha. Great. Next question is from MBA applications. Please talk about online video essays on Kira. I think they're referring to the Kellogg application, and I know that the Sloan application also has a video essay component. Seems like more schools want to see you talking, want to see the person you are before or when you submit the application. So, and I know it can be a bit difficult to speak into the camera, like you said. So how did you prepare for those video essay questions? What are your top tips for that?
It's actually, I think it's a really cool chance to prep for the actual interview. It's, in my view, less stressful because there is no live person. And yes, you're constrained by time. So you know that you only have maybe, 15 seconds to read the question and then less than a minute to prepare. Just, read whatever. They're all standard tips. And again, look at the camera and try to think fast. And it's important to fit your answer in this allocated time, because if you start to think of a very long story, how your life has developed, you will only be done with the beginning, and this doesn't bring anything. This plays against you. So think about very short stories that you could bring up, like your best achievements, all the standard questions, and try to, rather you are done faster with answering the question and have 5 seconds, of time where you don't say anything and just smile in a weird way, then you are abrupted in the middle of starting your conversation. This was my biggest learning in the process. And the Kira tool itself gives you time to prepare. There are like 2 to 3 questions where you play through, and you can also watch your answer even. That's all right, guys. That's one of the easiest part of the application.
Gotcha. Okay, I think we have a very interesting question. We all have heard how you were really great at time management, but can be an issue for a lot of people. So just walk us through how you organized your entire application process post GMAT up until you were submitting. I know Jaydeep wants to know, were you using a time planner daily? How were you going about managing your day with work and with so many applications?
Yeah. Hi, JD. Thanks for this question, because yes, I am proud of it. I mentioned it. I was keeping an organizer, so using stick notes, and I also wrote down whatever I learned about different schools in an online events, because sometimes they bring in very valuable stuff, like what they want to know about the applicant or what they value about applicants. That's gold. So make sure that you keep track of it. So I have a small book. I should have. Guys, I could sell this one. And there also, in the beginning of February, I wrote, okay, I have that much time until I need to submit the applications, and how much time do I want to allocate to what process? Of course, you can adapt it while on the way, but I think it's important to draw this draft before starting on this journey. So keep it. It can be a digital form as well, but you spend so time in front of the screen, especially now. It's nice to have some paper to touch.
Got it. And we already talked about how the entire application process is such a long process. You have to really pace yourself, take time off frequently. Don't just be like, I have to just keep writing the essays all the time, because that's again a recipe for a lot of mistakes. So yeah, I think there is another question about. Yeah, so people want to know more about. I think we already covered this. Again, question from Jaydeep: were you top 5% of your class? You mentioned you did reach out to your school.
Yeah,
and
guys, maybe just one more. I was not a superstar. Yesterday was admit day at Stanford, and they were saying there like some Olympic champions who got accepted. I thought I'm a admission mistake. Again, like everyone thinks, okay, for a certain period of time. No, I was never number one. I was in some cases number 2, in some cases top 20%. So I was above average in all spheres of life, if I can put it this way, but not top.
Got it. Yeah, I think a lot of people think that to get into Stanford or Harvard or even like the top programs, everything has to be perfect. But Olga's telling you guys, everything doesn't have to be perfect. It's a lot about execution, a lot about how you go about approaching the application, and not as much about. Or there is obviously you have to have those stats in place, but a lot of it depends on execution. There's a fun question. Jaydeep wants to know: did you get time to work out? Did you get time to focus on your health during the application process? He seems to be gaining a bit of weight, and it's stressing him out.
Yes, it's crucial. We talked a lot about this, especially I had some summer to go, and also because of the lockdown, it gave me a little bit more time because I didn't need to commute to work. Yes, it's important. Sometimes I totally blocked Sunday. I didn't study, didn't do anything on Sunday. Yes, just the short answer is yes, and don't find any excuses not to do it.
Got it. And I know we are turning up right on the hour. So I have one question. Again, feel free to answer as much as you like. You're choosing between different programs. And I think at this point, a lot of round one applicants face a similar dilemma. We see it on GMAT Club. People are asking all the time, how do I make a decision between these 2 or 3 or 4 different options I have? So any tips there? How should people think about once they're in a position where they have multiple admits? How do you think about which school you want to go to? Because it's such a big decision, right?
I want to appear smarty here, but I'm not an expert. But I'm not an expert because it's just, I think, around 9 days before the deadline when I need to decide, and I'm undecided yet. So guys, I cannot give you any advice. I try to, catch some data points which decide in favor of one certain school, but I have not arrived there yet. But I feel that I have made more meaningful connections to people at some certain school. Not telling you yet, but I will tell you guys later. And this is one of the things which tells me this is probably the simulation of how it will be at school. That I'm a kind of person which makes connections to that type of persons much easier than to other types of persons. And this is something I'm following now, and this is, I think, what makes me lean towards one school and not another. Of course, it's about also practical things where when I'm moving from abroad, will it be easier for my partner to find a job if he is a non-US citizen, if he doesn't have a permit yet? Like, what's the time difference with my family? Somebody will laugh at it, but if family is important for you, yes, it's an important argument as well. Just think of whatever is really crucial for you and what is less crucial. So weather for me, I don't care whether it's super warm or super cold. And I'm from Russia and don't care about snow. But at the same time, summer is cool. So just maybe try to reduce the number. That's what I'm doing now. So let's do it together. I'm trying to reduce the number of criteria to 3 most important ones, because when I try to make this list, because I love papers,
of those criteria.
It didn't work, because just I filled both lists till the end because it's Harvard and Stanford. But now that I'm focusing on top 3 most important criteria for me, the picture gets more clear.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Just like having all those criteria, but then also knowing which ones are more important and which ones are like kind of not so important. And I'm pretty sure once you make up your mind, we'll try to get you on for another session, try to have you share your tips about how you eventually made that decision. So we can always do another session about it. But I think we all know that you can't go wrong here. You're going to make the right choice. Thank you so much, Olga, for taking the time. I think this was super wonderful conversation. I'm sure people really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Anything else you want to share before we take your leave?
Just, guys, think of it. As soon as you apply, for example, to Harvard, you increase your chances to get admitted from 0 to 12%. So that's basically the biggest thing you can do to improve your chances, is to simply apply. Nobody is good enough for any school. Nobody is bad enough for any school. And believing in yourself, that's the most important component of your application. And they love people who dare. So be the one who dare. Let me finish with this part, a small thing of wisdom.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great way to end the session. And if you guys want to connect with Olga, she's on GMAT Club. Her handle is that Olga 93. Is that right?
That Olga 93. I think so. But I'll write in the respective thread where we will post the video and post the link so you can find me.
And you guys can also find her GMAT debrief with Sovik. You guys can go read her posts. If you don't know, I'm Variant Guy on GMAT Club. Feel free to go check out my posts as well. But Olga, this was great, and we hope to hear where you're headed soon.
Right. Thank you very much, and guys, good luck.
Cool. Take care. Bye.